Are you struggling with hormonal imbalances? Are you consuming foods unknowingly in your diet that are contributing to these hormonal imbalances? Are you experiencing sickness symptoms, things like brain fog, fatigue, bloating, and digestive issues that you don't know the cause of? This all begs the question that you could possibly be consuming food ingredients that are contributing to these symptoms. Welcome to Forever Fitmas, where I am doing videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, helping you all stay healthy throughout the holidays. Now, in today's video, we're going to talk about a very important topic, going into 5 top ingredients you may find in your everyday diet that could be contributing to poor health. In today's video, we're gonna explore these ingredients together. Here's the thing, I do wanna emphasize balance and having an informed approach with your diet. So I am not here to develop food mongering with you or go too far down in the rabbit hole, but just make you all better informed consumers for what could possibly be contributing to some of these symptoms if you're experiencing them. I also did for today's video just select 5, but there's definitely plenty more we could dive into. So if you do want to see future videos like this, be sure to leave a comment down below. So grab yourself a healthy snack, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump on into it. Red dye number 3, and I say specifically number 3 to not confuse it with red dye number 40. This is also known as erythrocene. Primarily, red dye number 3 is used in desserts, baked goods, baking decorations, and cosmetic products. It's mostly used as just coloring to an item, so it's not necessarily providing any flavor or doing anything else like emulsifying the product. It's just there to provide that color for you. While it is approved by the FDA, there has been a lot of concern based on potential health implications that can occur with consuming too much red dye number 3. There are debates about its safety, particularly because of the animal studies that we've seen showing a link between red dye number 3 and possible cancers such as thyroid cancer. Now, this was shown in animal studies, and the FDA does say that it's okay to consume at a certain level, but it still warrants a little question mark. Just a notation about the FDA real quick, because I will be discussing that throughout this video with these ingredients. They are the governing agency. I think we can all agree that the FDA doesn't necessarily always have our health in their best interest. I think the point of cigarette use is a prime example of the fact that we know the negative impact that cigarettes can have, yet they are still FDA approved for purchasing and consumption. Now, going back to 1990, the FDA actually did halt the use of red dye number 3 in cosmetics and pharmaceutical ointments or lotions that were topical due to seeing that increase in cancer in animals. Fast forward to the present, most recently in October of 2023, California as a state did just get red dye number 3 banned in the food supply. Now, this takes a little bit of time, so they don't expect to see this through until 2027, but California does tend to be a leader when it comes to health and advocating for what's best for our health. So it does make you wonder what is to come of this. California typically is a leader when it comes to this stuff, so it will be interesting to see if other states follow suit with this regulation. Now, I do want to mention I am speaking mostly to the US, of course, when it comes to the FDA, so I'm really curious for those of you from other countries, you may have different regulations. Some of these things could already be banned. So leave a comment below if you're familiar with these and if they are already banned in your country. Now, one of the most common things we see with red dye number 3 is that young children are the most susceptible to this because they have the most exposure in terms of their intake with foods consuming items with red dye number 3. And the fact that children are much smaller depending on your body weight, based on the amount you consume, it's gonna impact everyone different based on your body size. So with many artificial food colorings, we're gonna need to continue to get ongoing research for the long-term effects that this could potentially cause, but I would just suggest for you yourself, or if you are a parent and have kids at home, to be aware of what foods you could be consuming with these artificial dyes in it, and if you're experiencing any weird symptoms that you can't really explain. Sodium nitrate and its closely related compound, sodium nitrite, are chemical compounds often found in foods as a preservative. So you will see these mostly in foods such as preserved meats, things like deli meat, bacon, ham, and sausages. Now, this is a preservative added to these foods for a good reason. These chemical compounds are helpful because they help to prevent the growth of a very harmful bacteria known as Clostridium botulinum, which then can cause botulism. Botulism, as we know, can be a deadly illness. So what's the issue then? It sounds like we need this in some of our foods. Well, the issue is when we cook these foods at a high heat that contain those chemical compounds, something called nitrosamines can be formed. Nitrosamines are considered potentially carcinogenic compounds, which just means it could have a link there to cancer. There have been studies conducted that do in fact show a link between an increased risk, particularly of colorectal cancer and other diseases such as leukemia, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, heart disease, ovarian, stomach, esophageal, pancreatic, and thyroid cancers. These all may be linked to an excessive consumption of sodium nitrate. In addition, these compounds can also react with the amines that we already naturally have present in our digestive system, which can then combine into those nitrosamines and link to potential cancer risk. These have mostly been linked in animal studies, which is what we see with a lot of cancer research. However, this type of research is still ongoing and is definitely something to be mindful of. Interestingly enough, the FDA has set some limits in terms of how much sodium nitrate can be in any food item that we consume in effort to help minimize potential health risks. You'll also possibly notice that some manufacturers try to use other preservatives. A big one you'll see is ascorbic acid, which is just vitamin C. That's another way to preserve a food compound. While sodium nitrates do provide a function in terms of preventing botulism in terms of the foods that we eat, as a consumer, we do want to be aware of how much of these items we are consuming. You know, I like a good turkey sandwich every once in a while too, but just be mindful in terms of how much you are consuming of those processed meats and the potential health links that could occur from it. You're not always going to see immediate side effects. You eat a sausage or a ham sandwich and immediately feel ill and, oh my God, I have cancer. It doesn't work like that, right? So there can be long-term side effects down the road. So just keep that in mind as you are going about selecting the foods that you are consuming for you and your family. Butylated hydroxyanisole, also referred to as BHA, which I will continue to refer to it as, is another food preservative in our fats and oils to help it from becoming rancid. It's also commonly found in food products such as cereals, chewing gum, butter, and generally processed foods. The concern around BHA, again utilizing animal studies, has shown that potential risk between an overconsumption of it with its links to cancer and endocrine disruption, which, if you're not familiar with endocrine disruptors, essentially those are chemicals that are formed that can disrupt the normal hormonal processes in your body. If you're not familiar with that term, endocrine disruptors, those are chemicals that are created that can essentially just disrupt the entire balance of your body's normal hormonal processes. In terms of the cancer risk, again, with animal studies, they have shown high doses of BHA leading to development of tumors, particularly in the forestomach. It is important to note that those studies are done using exceptionally high doses that they report are way more than what a normal human would consume. I'm always a bit questionable with that just because of, at least living in the US, we tend to overconsume a lot more than what we even are aware of or self-report. Now, the FDA, the USDA, and the European Food Safety Authority, which is the EFSA, have all evaluated this information and established an acceptable daily limit. This is what would be known as safe for consumption within a specified time frame. They consider it relatively safe for consumption as, based on studies, it's either been mixed or inconclusive in terms of its evidence regarding its potential carcinogenic effect in humans. However, I always think bigger picture with this stuff, and we still don't really know X plus Y equals Z for any type of cancer and what causes it and what directly leads to it. So for that reason, most people do try to limit the amount of BHA in their diet, and it's definitely something to be considerate of, because regardless if they're saying it's pretty much safe right now, it's inconclusive. So we still don't really know how this could affect us in the long term. But we do know cancer seems to be going up in every different area that you could develop cancer. Additionally, if you are someone, when I asked about struggling with hormonal issues at the beginning of this video, that you're not really sure what's going on or why, this is the stuff to start to tease out. Is this something that you are consuming in your diet? And maybe take a look and remove it altogether. Kaigenin, that's a food additive derived from red seaweed. Sounds kind of healthy, right? It's mostly used as a stabilizer or emulsifier. We see this in a lot of dairy products like yogurt. Additionally, plant-based milks are on the rise, including this, and certain deli meats. Deli meats seem to be a theme, don't they? The concern around Kaigenin is the potential inflammatory response that could be created, especially within your GI system. So if you are someone that's having that bloating, digestive issues, and you're unsure why, this again is something to take a look at if you're consuming it in your diet. Some studies have linked the correlation between Kaigenin consumption and the inflammation in the digestive tract. That's then going to lead to those issues of bloating, potentially IBS if you're someone that struggles with that, and could lead to even more severe issues. There are two forms of Kaigenin, degraded and undegraded. Now, the undegraded is the form that we do use in food, and the FDA has considered it safe, but the research does suggest it could potentially cause that GI distress, especially in very sensitive individuals, and that's something I want to hone in on. Everyone's body responds differently to things. Our own sensitivities could drastically vary. So it could be good for me, could be horrible for my husband. So keep that in mind, your sensitivity to this stuff and how much you consume of it, regardless of what the FDA says is safer consumption, could still be impacting you negatively. There is also a potential link between Kaigenin and cancer risk. Still uncertain. There is a possible connection there with increased risk of GI cancer specifically, which makes sense. So if you are someone that's actively struggling with those GI type side effects or symptoms, I would highly suggest taking a look at this one in your diet and maybe just removing it altogether, just to really weed that out and make sure that's not contributing to some active symptoms you're experiencing and long-term health effects. Propyl, this is a compound belonging to a group known as parabens. You may be familiar with that term. It's primarily used as a preservative, not only in food, but also in cosmetics and personal care items, as well as pharmaceuticals. The concern surrounding propyl is regarding its potential to have the endocrine disrupting properties. So those endocrine disrupting properties I mentioned before just honestly take over all your hormones, and your hormones dictate so many of your essential bodily functions to stay healthy and feel healthy. In terms of specific foods that you might find propyl, so you can take a look while you're in the grocery store, it's going to be a lot of our packaged foods because it helps to extend the shelf life of it. So things like baked goods, dairy products, sauces and dressings, processed meats again, beverages. So you can see it in a lot of different items in the grocery store. So it's important to remember that it's going to vary too based on the manufacturer and what food item you're looking for, but take note if this ingredient is in a lot of the foods that you're purchasing. The research on this one is quite limited. We don't have anything conclusive here, but I think we know coming into 2024, hormonal health is something that everyone is talking about, and we're just becoming that much more aware of, and we need a lot more research on it, right? So if you are someone who is struggling with anything related to your hormones, I definitely encourage you to take a look if this is something that you are consuming in the foods that you're picking up in the grocery store. As a good rule of thumb with all 5 ingredients I mentioned here today, regardless that the FDA says they're safe or safe at set limits, if you are experiencing any symptoms that you are just unsure where they're coming from, it's not a bad idea as a consumer to avoid them or just take note and reduce the amount that you're consuming. So So as I mentioned, I like deli meat, but I'm not gonna eat it every single day, nor am I gonna eat it every single meal, because there's a ton of overlap between deli meat and some of these food additives that have very negative, potentially life-threatening health effects. As we wrap up here, I wanna reiterate the point of this was not to create fear-mongering with you or to get too far down in the weeds with everything, but just to empower you to be a more well-informed consumer, especially coming into the new year, coming into 2024, keeping that healthy mindset. Just remember, moderation and balance, they're always key. It's not to say if you consume any of these things here and there that you're gonna have negative health effects. It doesn't work like that, but just be more informed in terms of what you're consuming and some of these sneaky ingredients that could be added in there and causing you some issues. Little small changes, just maybe omitting one or two of these things from what you're eating, sometimes can make all the difference. If this video has you left feeling like you don't know what you're gonna eat, then make sure you are subscribed and stay tuned for my next video, because I am doing recipe videos once a week, making sure I'm showing you how to use really healthy ingredients that still taste good and leave you feeling satisfied. Until next one, friends, have a healthy, happy holiday.